Well, that surprise Ukrainian attack is politically and militarily embarrassing for President Putin, as Russian citizens are taken aback by the Ukrainian offensive. Russian state media are putting a positive spin on events, but the families of frontline troops are becoming increasingly dismayed.
This is how Russian state media presents Ukraine's incursion.
Russia will not negotiate with those who kill civilians, destroy civil infrastructure, and attack nuclear power facilities.
The evening news program on state television claims TV reporters helped rescue locals from a village in the Kursk region. Its reports show alleged successful hits on the Ukrainian army. But investigative journalists have already challenged the claims. Some of the Russian Defense Ministry's videos reportedly contain old footage that wasn't even filmed on Russian territory, but in Ukraine. What Russian TV viewers don't see? This video from the first days of the incursion is believed to show Ukrainian forces capturing Russian soldiers, among them conscripts. The Russian units along the border consisted mostly of poorly trained conscript soldiers. And experts say that is part of the reason why Ukraine's incursion was possible. The conscripts' mothers started an online petition demanding President Vladimir Putin to remove all conscripts from the border region. They have no military experience and no weapons. Spare the lives of soldiers who are not prepared for military action. The military's reliance on conscripts did not come as a surprise for many analysts.
Nobody promised they wouldn't take part in any military duties. They were promised they wouldn't be deployed in the so-called special military operation. But Kursk is in the stage of it, at least officially.
The Ukrainian incursion has brought Russia's war closer to people inside Russia. According to local authorities, tens of thousands of civilians have successfully been evacuated from border regions. These videos, published by Russia's emergency ministry, show temporary shelters built for civilians.
Very good. There is good food. They brought us some clothes to change into.
Videos shared on social media platforms show a different story.
They told us to come here for the evacuation, but now we are standing here.
But their voices will not make Russian state TV's evening news.
Now, Alexander Bikbov is an associate fellow from the Center for Russian, Caucasian and Central European Studies in Paris. Welcome to DW. Just picking up on that last point, we have Ukraine launching this incursion and we have conscript mothers posting public petitions. Are we seeing a fragmenting of the message now that the Russian public is getting about this war?
We certainly have this fragmentation because normally, usually in European media, we have an idea that there is only one voice, the one official narration about the war. Meanwhile, there are several ones. And already the fragmentation is really well seen at the level of federal government, which hides the events, which tries to use the most possible neutralized vocabulary, like actual situation, operation, activities. But if we look a bit lower to the regional level, the governors of the regions which are under attack, they explicitly use some of the war-related vocabularies, like, for example, attack, defense, retreat, etc. So they try to speak to the local population in more concrete way. And some social networks which are used, for example, the Russian equivalent of Facebook, which is Kontakte, is used by the governors, by the local governments, in order to partly coordinate the evacuation campaign from the Kursk region. And there, some of the vocabularies, quite realist ones, are used. And next, what we observe, this is quite huge part, quite a huge segment of social networks, which is not at all the good or civic networks, but mostly the Z or pro-Kremlin networks, which praise the war, which use the overtly militant and bellicose vocabulary starting from the 2022. And there is no secret, and they are quite popular among the Russian population. Also, not only because they call explicitly for the war, but just because they inform the population about the tactical situation on the front line.
All right, so we have a situation where, and thank you for that, so it's not one picture that is being put forward to the Russian public from the various arms of the state. Tell us about the picture that is formed when you jump out of that, when you take to, when people use VPNs or social media, when people go to much freer media environments. What are they learning there?
One of the stakes of free media, which were expulsed from the Russian territory with the beginning of the war, some of them already quit the territory after the persecutions which Kremlin organized already in 2019, 2020. Then the others had to quit because they wanted to publish overtly critical materials about the war. So one of the stakes is to inform about the real situation on the front line, and also to speak about the Ukraine in, how to say it, more neutral journalistic language, or maybe even in the language which praises the Ukrainian advancements in the front. So people who wish to find some more reliable information except the official narrations can easily find it with the VPN. And if we look at the statistics of the VPN usage, it's about 40 to 45% of Russian citizens who report using quite regularly VPN connections.
Thanks for talking us through that. Alexander Bikbov from the Center for Russian, Caucasian and Central European Studies.
Let's have a look at the Russian side of things with our Eastern Europe editor, Roman Goncharenko. Roman, good to see you. We're 1 week into this offensive. What has the psychological effect been in Russia of seeing that suddenly people in their own country are displaced by fighting, that the war is, in fact, coming closer to home?
Well, yes. Well, things are still developing, and I think it takes some time for most Russians to digest what is really happening, especially if we take into consideration that the Russian authorities have tried to downplay the effect and are still trying to downplay it. We don't have scientific data on this. There are no polls on the incursion of the Ukrainian army, but so we can speculate at the moment. But it is really a big thing psychologically, as you've just mentioned, because it's really for the first time for decades that Russia has been attacked by a neighboring state. Well, Russian authorities say that Ukraine is not a state, it's a former part of the Soviet Union, but still, it has been a sovereign state, it is still a sovereign state for most of the world. So the effect is there, and it depends on where you live in Russia. If you live closer to the border where things are happening now in western and southern regions of Russia, I think the effect is much more is much stronger. So people see all those more than 100,000 de facto refugees. This is the first time Russia is having this on such a scale. Of course, you can hardly compare it to Ukraine, where millions have to flee the country after the Russian invasion. But still, it has an enormous effect on the Russian psyche. And I think it will take some more time to let it sink in, because it's such a huge thing happening.
Yeah. Many analysts say part of the Ukrainian strategy here is to sow fear and even a dissent with the government among average Russians. Is that working, you think?
Well, it's hard to measure that. I think if it's working, then it's not working that so we can really say that it's working well or working hard. I'll explain. This war, when Russia is attacked or any country is attacked, there is more, I think, something of a rally around the flag. So the society is more consolidated, and this is what Vladimir Putin is hoping for. This is what he was addressing just on Monday when he spoke about this incursion. So he said that Ukraine will not succeed in dividing our our country. So I don't think that was the major point of this incursion for Ukraine. I think the major points were, first of all, to divert the Russian forces from Donbass, where the fighting is very, very hard for the Ukrainian army, to boost the Ukrainian morale, and to show to the world that Ukraine can still fight, that it can still hit Russia, and it can still be successful.
The Kremlin has a notorious propaganda machine. How has that been reacting to this incursion?
Well, it's interesting. The Russian propaganda machine has a big problem, and it's because it basically has no more munition, because Russian propaganda has been telling for years, has been telling stories like, let's bomb Ukraine, let's drop a nuclear bomb on Ukraine, let's bomb Washington, let's bomb Berlin. So they can hardly escalate more verbally. So they face a real problem. And now watching them, listening to them, I see they are basically continuing to say the same things, that Russia has to take revenge on Ukraine, Russia has to drop more bombs on Ukraine, Russia should kill Ukrainian President Zelensky. But we've heard that all many, many times before. And on the other hand, Russian propaganda has also a problem because it is trying to downplay the scale of what is happening. Right. We are seeing that they're trying to bring other news from other regions of Russia, other events. So they're not focusing completely on what is happening in Kursk, something you would expect in any other country.
Yeah, that was our Eastern Europe editor, Roman Goncharenko. Great speaking to you. Thank you so much.